The moving truck had just pulled away, leaving the Thompson family standing in the driveway of their new home. The house was beautiful, a charming two-story with a wide porch and a big backyard. It was everything they had dreamed of. But as they carried boxes inside, their golden retriever Max sat firmly on the sidewalk, his tail tucked between his legs. "Come on, Max, this is our new home," 12-year-old Lily called, patting her knees. But Max didn't budge. He let out a low whine, his eyes darting toward the house. "Maybe he's just tired from the drive," Lily's dad Tom said, trying to sound reassuring. But even he couldn't ignore the way Max's ears flattened against his head, or how his usually wagging tail stayed still. That night, as the family settled into the living room, Max remained outside, pacing back and forth on the porch. Every time Lily opened the door to coax him in, he'd take a step back, his eyes wide and fearful. "This isn't like him," Lily's mom, Sarah, said, her voice tinged with worry. "He's never acted like this before." The next morning, things got stranger. Max refused to eat his breakfast, something he'd never done in his 6 years with the family. He'd sniff the air, growl softly, and then retreat to the far corner of the yard, as if trying to stay as far away from the house as possible. "What's wrong with him?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. She loved Max more than anything, and seeing him so scared broke her heart. By the second night, the family started to notice other things. The house creaked in ways that made them jump. Doors seemed to close on their own, and once Lily swore she heard whispering coming from the empty upstairs hallway. "It's just an old house," Tom said, trying to calm everyone down. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Then, on the third night, it happened. Lily was in her new room, trying to fall asleep, when she heard it. A faint scratching sound, like nails dragging across wood. She sat up, her heart pounding. The sound was coming from inside the wall. She called for her parents, and together they listened. The scratching grew louder, more frantic. Max, who had finally been coaxed inside, began to bark wildly, his eyes fixed on the wall. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, her face pale. Tom grabbed a flashlight and pressed his ear to the wall. The scratching stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then a soft, muffled whimper echoed through the room. Max let out a howl, and the family froze. What was hiding in their walls? And why was Max so afraid? The next morning, the Thompsons called a handyman to inspect the house. He arrived with a toolbox and a skeptical look. "Probably just mice," he said, tapping the wall. But as he began to remove a panel, Max started barking again, his fur standing on end. The handyman paused. "Your dog's not making this easy," he muttered. But when he finally pulled the panel away, his expression changed. Inside the wall was a small, hidden compartment, and inside that compartment was a dusty old journal. "What the—" Tom trailed off as he picked up the journal. The cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. He flipped it open, and a photograph fell out. It was a picture of a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl, standing in front of the very same house. "Who are they?" Lily asked, peering over her dad's shoulder. Tom didn't answer. He was too busy reading the first page of the journal. His face grew pale as he scanned the words. "What does it say?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. With worry, Tom looked up, his eyes wide. "It's a diary from the family who lived here before us, and it doesn't sound like they left willingly." The journal told the story of the Millers, a family who had moved into the house decades ago. First, everything seemed perfect, but then strange things started happening. Whispers in the night, cold spots in the house, and the feeling of being watched. The entries grew more frantic as the family described their growing fear. The final entry was dated just days before the Millers disappeared without a trace. "This can't be real," Sarah said, shaking her head, but the evidence was right in front of them. That night, the Thompsons tried to sleep, but the house felt different now. Every creak, every shadow seemed to carry a new weight. Max stayed close to Lily, his eyes darting around the room as if watching for something only he could see. Then, around midnight, the scratching started again. This time, was louder, more insistent. Max began to growl, his body tense. "We need to find out what's in there," Tom said, his voice firm. He grabbed a crowbar and began prying away more of the wall. Lily and Sarah watched, their hearts pounding. As the wall came apart, they saw it, a small, hidden room, barely big enough to stand in. The air was cold and damp, and the walls were covered in strange symbols. In the center of the room was a small wooden box. Max let out a low whine, his tail tucked between his legs. He refused to go near the box, his eyes filled with fear. Tom reached for the box, his hands trembling. He opened it slowly, and inside, he found a collection of old photographs, a locket, and a folded piece of paper. The paper was a letter, written in the same handwriting as the journal. "To whoever finds this," the letter began, "please help us. We are trapped here and we cannot leave. The house, it's alive." The Thompsons stared at the letter, their minds racing. What did it mean, and why had Max been so afraid? The next day, the Thompsons decided to investigate further. They visited the local library, hoping to find more information about the Millers. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. The Millers had vanished over 50 years ago, and their disappearance had never been solved. But there were rumors of a curse, of a house that wouldn't let its occupants leave. Some even claimed to have seen the ghost of the little girl still wandering the halls. "This can't be real," Sarah said, her voice shaking. But the evidence was hard to ignore. That night, the Thompsons decided to confront whatever was in the house. They gathered in the living room, Max by their side, and called out into the darkness. "We know you're here," Tom said, his voice steady. "We want to help you." For a moment there was silence. Then the temperature in the room dropped and the air grew heavy. The lights flickered and shadows danced on the walls. Max began to bark, his eyes fixed on the corner of the room, and then they saw her. A little girl, her face pale and her eyes sad. She looked just like the girl in the photograph. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Help us." The Thompsons were frozen in place, their hearts pounding. But Lily, brave beyond her years, stepped forward. "What happened to you?" she asked softly. The girl's story came out in fragments, her voice trembling. She and her family had been happy once, but then the house had changed. It had become a prison, trapping them inside. They had tried to leave, but something always stopped them. And then one night they had simply disappeared. "We've been here ever since," the girl said, her eyes filling with tears. "We can't leave." The Thompsons listened, their hearts breaking for the little girl and her family. They knew they had to do something. "How can we help you?" Tom asked. The girl pointed to the wooden box. "You found our memories, but to set us free you need to break the curse." The Thompsons didn't know how to break a curse, but they were determined to try. They spent the next few days researching, consulting experts, and even reaching out to a local historian. Finally, they found a clue, a ritual that might release the trapped spirits. On the night of the full moon, the Thompsons gathered in the hidden room. They lit candles, placed the photographs and locket in a circle, and recited the words they had found. Max stayed close, his eyes never leaving the little girl. As the final words were spoken, the room grew cold, and the candles flickered. The little girl smiled, her form beginning to fade. "Thank you," she whispered. And then she was gone. The house fell silent, the air warm once more. The Thompsons looked at each other, tears in their eyes. They had done it. They had set the spirits free. The next morning, the house felt different, lighter, happier. Max wagged his tail as he explored every room, his fear finally gone. The Thompsons knew they had made the right decision. Over the next few weeks, they settled into their new home, making it their own. They framed the old photograph of the Millers and hung it in the hallway, a reminder of the family who had once lived there. Lily often thought about the little girl, wondering if she was finally at peace. She liked to imagine her playing in a sunny field, free from the shadows of the past. As for Max, he became the hero of the story. The Thompsons realized that his refusal to enter the house had been a warning, a sign that something was wrong. His loyalty and bravery had saved them, and they made sure to give him extra treats and belly rubs. The Thompsons' story spread through the town, and soon people came to visit the haunted house that was no longer haunted. The Thompsons welcomed them, sharing their story and the lessons they had learned. In the end, it wasn't just about the mystery or the curse. It was about family, love, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their pets. Max had shown them that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust your instincts, even when no one else understands. As the sun set one evening, the Thompsons sat on the porch, Max at their feet. The house was quiet, the air filled with the sounds of crickets and the rustling of leaves. They knew they had found more than just a new home. They had found a new beginning. And as they looked out at the stars, they felt a sense of peace, knowing that the past was finally at rest. What would you have done if your dog refused to enter your new home? Would you have trusted their instincts? Do you believe in spirits or curses? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more mysterious tales. And that's the story of the Thompsons and their brave dog, Max. A tale of mystery, courage, and the power of love. Thanks for listening.